Hel Hello, everybody. This is Jerry, or Blade Age 86, as I'm known on YouTube, and I would just like to take a quick thought experiment with all of you today. Imagine you're minding your own business, and someone breaks into your house in the middle of the night and steals $1,000 worth of your stuff. You call the police to report the robbery, but the police don't do anything about it. Now, the next night, you're again robbed of $1,000 worth of your personal property. You call the police and they again do nothing about it. So the thief tries to rob from you again, but this time you fight off the robber and prevent him from stealing more of your property. But the victory is short-lived, as the next day the police come to your house and arrest you. As you ask them why you were arrested, instead of the robber, they tell you that it was them who were stealing from you all along. But it is all above board because they have a special piece of paper that allows them to rob you whenever they want, and for whatever amount they want. So you go to court with a jury that has a collective IQ that can't be much higher than room temperature, and a judge who is getting a little bit of the illicit cash stolen from you and others on the side. You're found guilty of refusing to be robbed, and are left with two choices: pay the police $5,000 or go to prison. Since you don't want to go to prison, you reluctantly agree to pay the $5,000 and are instructed by the judge to fill out an unnecessarily complicated form once a week, every week without exception, detailing how much money you make and how much you've spent, and that your answers and their discretion will determine how much you owe them. You later find out that the entire town is being robbed and extorted in a similar manner. So you get together with other outraged citizens and try to change things. The police soon find out that if they want to keep their ill-gotten gains, they have to give back enough of the people's money to keep them quiet. So they calculated how much money they have stolen from the people and decided to give back 10% of the money, and through a massive propaganda campaign convinced much of the town into believing they were doing them a favor by that they were cutting them a break. Now, this works for a little while until the people start to demand a little more bang for their buck, and the police notice that their plundering has put much of the town into the proverbial poorhouse. So the police come up with these expensive top-down, one-size-fits-all social programs in the name of helping the poor. The programs work for a short time, and poverty rates go down for just a little bit. But the programs start to get even more expensive. So the police tell the people that if they want the programs to continue, they have to give them more money. So the people comply and give them more. Soon the town becomes so dependent that half the population is on some kind of assistance. Realizing that they can only demand so much of the people's money before they start rebelling, they set up a town bank and start printing their own money at interest and require by law that all transactions in the town utilize that particular currency. At first, the infusion of cash seemed to benefit the town with an explosion of economic activity. But with so much money chasing after far too few goods, inflation occurred, and the price of basic goods and services skyrocketed. The purchasing power of the people decreased dramatically, and they demanded more regulation and more programs to make up for the discrepancy. To pay for these regulations and programs, they started borrowing money from a neighboring town and printed even more money. For a while, these new programs worked and the people were happy until inflation once again reared its ugly head, and soon the town became divided, with some wanting more programs and that more money be stolen from the rich and given to the poor, and some wanting fewer programs and less money stolen from them. The police realized that they'd need to do a little bit of lip service, so they started two political parties, with one calling for more programs and one for less. The people, convinced that these two parties had major differences, believed they had a choice, when the only significant difference between the parties was their rhetoric. No matter which party was in power, the borrowing, money printing, and robbery of the people continued unabated. The market eventually collapsed, and the unemployment rate was at an all-time high. Both parties argued that the only way to save the economy from further collapse was to bail out the banks, which were set up by the police to secure their ill-gotten gains, and the businesses which were in their pockets. The bailouts were unpopular and sparked mass outrage, but the voices of the people went unheeded, as when the parties switched power again, there were more bailouts, except these bailouts were renamed stimulus packages and were sold to the people as a way to solve the unemployment problem. Unemployment continued to soar, and the value of the currency continued to plummet until the police still held to the same disastrous policies. I know, folks, I know that nobody from the government is literally breaking into your house and stealing your stuff, and I know the police aren't really the masterminds behind this, and not all the police are bad, but they seemed like the best example to me, and why is it that we allow the government the right to take as much of what we earn as they please, so long as they have that magical piece of paper that says they can without due process? The Constitution's clear that taxes can be levied, but only if they're apportioned, and only if they're one of the 16 enumerated powers in the Constitution. In other words, everybody pays the same amount regardless of income and can only be used to pay for basics such as police, the courts, the military, etc. Now, this was allegedly repealed by the 16th Amendment, but as they conveniently don't tell you, the 16th Amendment was never legitimately ratified, and therefore unapportioned taxes such as the income tax are unconstitutional and illegitimate. But since the government has that magical piece of paper, they reserve the right to rob us. Despite the obvious immorality of this blatant theft, your average person will still mindlessly defend this corrupt system and will act as if they've won the lottery if the IRS throws a few crumbs back of the money they stole from them in the form of tax breaks. And they still assert that if we don't pay these taxes, we're not going to get, oh my God, they're going to shut down hospitals and schools and stuff, when the big joke is that the vast majority of the money that we pay in taxes is paid the interest on the debt made up out of nothing by the bankers. Every dollar that is printed, we owe more money to the bankers because they're printed at interest. Wake up, people. You're being robbed. Anyway, think about this the next time you pay your taxes. And with that, I will see you all later.